This video tackles an issue that I think New South Wales councils need to grapple with. It's something we as an industry need to have a meaningful debate about. In trying to work out how best to communicate and explore the issue, I came across this HBR article, which I think does it nicely. Now, the simple test of your council's strategic alignment is really simple. It's just two questions, but in order to answer them properly, we need to understand their context in the Integrated Planning and Reporting Framework, IPNR. The first question is, how well does your strategy support the fulfilment of your purpose? Everyone will have an idea immediately about what the key terms mean here, but I suggest we start with the Local Government Act to explain them. Section 8, which replaced the old council's charter in amendments in 2016, starts by defining the object of the principles for local government, which is to enable councils to carry out their functions in a way that facilitates local communities that are strong, healthy and prosperous. I suggest that council's strategy is how it will carry out its functions, and this is set out in its delivery program. And council's purpose is to facilitate local communities that are strong, healthy and prosperous. And the community strategic plan should communicate what that looks like to your local community. But we also need to be clear what the IPNR guidelines say, because I suggest that most council staff responsible for preparing your IPNR documents will be focused here and not on the Act itself. Essential Element 4.6 says that the delivery program must directly address the objectives and strategies of the Community Strategic Plan. And this is clearly explained via this figure, which was in the old IPNR manual and reflected in most council IPNR documents. There's a one-to-one relationship. Councils structure their DP so they categorise their actions into one of the themes from the CSP, our community, our environment, our economy, etc., to show how they're going to implement those strategies. And in terms of the first question in the test and the interpretation of the key terms from the Act, I'd say this approach means that Council's strategy in the DP supports the fulfilment of its purpose from the CSP very well. I was surprised to see that that old figure is no longer in the IPNR handbook, which has replaced the manual. This is the new version, which I'm not sure is the most helpful way of describing the relationship between these documents. It talks about actions in the delivery program and operational plan to achieve objectives in the community strategic plan. But right before this, the model table of contents for the delivery program talks about services linked to strategic direction, not actions and objectives or strategies, or principal activities or functions, which is what the Act actually says the delivery program is supposed to detail. So up until recently, the Act said that the delivery program was to detail the principal activities to be undertaken by the Council to implement the strategies in the Community Strategic Plan within the resources available under the resourcing strategy. But the amendments from 2016, which unlike Section 8 only just commenced when the new IPNR guidelines were issued, contain an important shift in emphasis. The focus now isn't just on implementing the CSP strategies, although the Act makes clear that councils must do so, but rather performing council's functions. Given the delivery program is all about council's functions, it should be clear why I interpreted Section 8 of the Act in this way. So I've been waiting with bated breath to see how this change in the Act was reflected in the guidelines, and in fact this requirement about the delivery program directly addressing the objectives and strategies in the CSP is straight from the 2013 guidelines. But this extra bit has been added to accommodate the change in the Act, in effect reminding councils that in addition they need to cover all the council's functions too, but it's not saying that the functions are the primary thing. In fact, the IPNR guidelines turn the requirements of the Act on its head, and this has significant implications for the way councils approach their strategic planning. Rather than starting their delivery program based on council's functions and identifying the principal activities within the resources available in the resourcing strategy to perform these, including implementing the strategies in the Community Strategic Plan, The IPNR guidelines are in effect encouraging councils to start with the community strategic plan strategies, identify the principal activities to implement those within available resources, and then make sure that they're covering all the council's functions. And this is a major difference. Councils who structure their delivery program based on CSP themes would, I'd suggest, do really well as far as the first part of this test, supporting their strategy, supporting the fulfilment of their purpose. But they're tying their hands behind their back in terms of the second part of the test, which asks how well your organisation supports the achievement of your strategy. Back to the act again, your strategy should be providing direction about how you're going to carry out your functions. If you start with why you do it, the CSP themes, our purpose, and then assign activities or actions in the delivery program and operational plan against these. So here with this council, and this is based on a real example, this council has assigned actions relating to its water supply function across each of the themes to show it's addressing them all. Then council cannot avoid preparing its delivery program and operational plan as two separate documents, one for its actions and the other for its budgets, because virtually all councils structure their budgets based on their functions, things like water supply, sewerage and roads. But it gets far more complicated than just having two separate documents, because there's not just actions relating to water supply against each of these themes, but roads, for example. And what you end up with is this muddying of the waters where it's not at all clear what we do and what resources we need to do it. This is creating real-world problems for councils in terms of their strategic planning. I was at a council the other day who were doing the right thing, following IPNR guidelines, and they'd ended up with these two separate documents, one for their actions and the other for their budgets. And as soon as I explained this, they could see that it's tying their hands behind their backs and preventing them from undertaking meaningful strategic planning and reporting. And they could see that if they started instead with their functions, then their budgets immediately align. They can now put these in the same document. And they're not losing sight of their purpose. In fact, quite the opposite. As I've shown here, rather than this one-to-one relationship where they pigeonhole an activity into a social, environmental or economic theme, it's a matrix relationship that enables them to explore all the social, environmental, economic and civic leadership perspectives on all of their activities in a far more meaningful way. Perhaps most critically for them and for most councils is that this structure also enables them to achieve robust alignment between their delivery program and their resourcing strategy, and so grapple with their sustainability challenges. And in fact, to achieve strategic alignment right across their IPNR documents. So back to the simple test, this council recognised that in order to support the achievement of their strategy, they needed to change the way they actually structure their strategy, which is their delivery program. So we can now actually take the test. How aligned is your strategy with your long-term purpose? I'd say it's really well aligned. But how well aligned is your strategy with your organisational capabilities, which, based on the Act, I suggest means how well is it aligned with your ability to carry out your functions? I'd say that it's not well at all aligned. And so, as a result, if this is true for your council, then this test is telling you that while you may have the best of intentions, you won't be capable of delivering the best possible value to your community. I really like the way that this is described, because I have no doubt that those writing the IPNR guidelines and the councils who are following them have the best of intentions. They want to demonstrate that everything they do is focused on outcomes for the community. But if councils are to be more capable, they need a strategy that clearly sets out what we're going to do, who's going to do it, what resources we're going to give them to do it, how we'll measure the outcomes at the end of council's term, and how we'll monitor their performance along the way via the operational plan. Anyway, all the best with it. I hope this video has given you some food for thought, and I'd be very interested to hear what you think. Thanks for watching.